left at 8:50, had to call in at 11:30, and went online by 11:30, they said, don't show up. Good.
Did you redo these, Megan?
That was the last number.
I know you just called, please. It's interesting, what you.
Well, if you had a decent case, the one I was on was a traffic case, it could have been solved by anyone who had 10 months of, accident investigation training.
How was it one day? Well,
Peters. I bet the cats were doing it.
oh, hey.
All right. It's live now.
All right, we good?
Yes. It's a nerd. Some variants.
Hey, are we good?
Yes, we're
All right.
streaming.
Let's start.
We are number
This time we will call the regular Board of Trustees meeting to order for the town of Green Mountain Falls. Today is Tuesday, March 1st. We are starting at 6:34. Thank you for spending your Mardi Gras with us. All the trustees are present except for Trustee Quinn. And at this time you will stand in. Say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to this agenda as presented?
We can talk later, or during the meeting, during our reports.
All right. So seeing none, move to approve.
I'll second.
If there's no discussion, all those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 3 is the consent agenda, which is the accounts payable from February 12th through February 25th, and the minutes from the Board of Trustees meeting of February 15th. Does anyone on the board want to bring an item out for discussion?
I do have a correction to the minutes. Sorry, I do have a correction to the minutes.
Okay.
On paragraph 4, change references. The change requested was from consultant to respondent.
Oh.
That's all I have. Thank
Yeah.
you.
All right, so is that a motion to approve as corrected? Cindy made that
I
motion.
made the motion.
I'll second.
If there's no further discussion, all those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes. Item 4 is the public hearing. This is public comment for variance 2022-0204, which is for 10830 UPass Avenue. This is the firehouse menu development. Is the petitioner here?
No.
So, board, you have all of the information in your packet, as well as the, this was presented before the planning commission. when Todd comes back, he will talk about what the planning commission said. So
And
Nate, do you want to present a bit more?
Yeah, so this was presented to the planning commission. The planning commission voted in favor of recommending the approval of the variances. And like it states here, two variances applied for. One, the allowing of commercial use on a lot size under 10,000 square feet. Because this was a change in use from essentially a public building to a commercial business. The code does state now, or the code currently does have that lot size restriction for businesses. I think we can all probably guess that many of the businesses in town don't fall under that, or haven't abided by that lot size limit throughout the years. So that's a minor one. The more, I guess, questionable one maybe is the dedicated off-street parking situation for the business. The petitioners, as kind of I summarized down below in my staff notes, their view is that many of the businesses in town, most of them are in the town center down, with the Blue Moose and the whole building down there. And most of those businesses don't have dedicated parking themselves. They all rely heavily on public parking. And so the petitioners in this case want to do the same thing. And so they, that's their argument, I guess, for this variance, and that it would essentially create a hardship to anyone that wants to develop that building and that property into a viable business in the town.
All right, so this is a public hearing. And you have heard what the presentation is and the reason for request of variance. Does anyone in the public have a comment they would like to make about this particular venue? Well, seeing none. Yes, Liz, would you approach, please?
Liz Ives, 10790 Florence Avenue, Fremont Falls. My only, and they're not here to ask this question too, is their plan with no dedicated parking and relying on paid parking. Are they going to provide their guests a shuttle? Because I don't see the business being enjoyable to people as a, say, a wedding venue at night and then having to walk several blocks to find their cars in an area they don't necessarily know. So that was my question to that, and it does present a problem to, I see that they have a verbal agreement with Black Bear, but they don't have one with Red Cloud, so that's the building right next to them. Are they going to then infringe on their parking? I just see that hassle occurring, and I just was curious, but they're not here to answer that question. Was that talked about at the planning commission?
Not the Red Cloud situation, no. And I should add that there will be 2 dedicated handicap spots and a drop-off area, but that's it.
But there's
as far as I'm planning.
They don't plan to have like some sort of shuttle service.
No.
Or we don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know about.
Yeah, I don't know that for sure, but that was never mentioned to me.
Okay, well then I just see it as a problem, and with the Black Bear Distillery having that hose running across the road onto their property, how much parking do they actually have to offer them? To be quite honest at this present point. So those are my things. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Is there any further public comment? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing at 6:43 and move on to this board discussion of variance 2022-0204 and 10830 Pass Avenue, the Firehouse Venue Development. Todd, do you have any comments from the Planning Commission?
No formal comments from the planning commission individually. The firehouse development was identified in a comprehensive plan. And it's physically really impossible to do anything unless they buy another piece of property and bulldoze it. And so that was one of my own personal opinions on why to go ahead and proceed with it. No additional comments from the, as far as formal comments from the planning commission.
All right, thank you. Board, do you have any comments, any questions?
Well, there's the parking lot that's property of I guess it's the historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation. I don't actually know what the name is on that property. But, that looks, just in terms of its location, it looks more practical than sharing parking with our little downtown area that doesn't really have that kind of parking to spare anyway. I mean, I understand what they're saying about needing a variance because the other businesses don't necessarily have designated parking either. I get that, but there's a little more to it than that. Like, okay, so where are they gonna park? And if the Black Bear is not sufficient, or if they also have, events going on, I just think that it needs to be thought through a little further, and maybe some other alternatives explored before we just say, go ahead.
But I also don't know that it is our position to negotiate what their problems of their business are.
True.
I mean, what our purview is to say, can they have a business or not, with the problems that can be anticipated. I think that we need to pursue having the firehouse developed, and if somebody doesn't develop it to do something, it's gonna be just an empty nothing for a long time.
Sure, they're already working on it.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it developed. That's not the issue. So
Right.
If we're just saying, it's okay that we don't know where people are gonna park, then we're okay with that.
Because when we went into the short-term rental business, we wanted to see people have designated parking because it is in a residential area.
Mhm.
But this is a business in the downtown area, which we've never made people have dedicated parking for any of those businesses.
Right.
And I'd just like to add that, when there are weddings at the gazebo, you park where you park. And it's not that big a deal to find a place to park farther up and walk around, because it's not like it's 20 blocks away.
Yeah,
You
I think Mrs. Ives brought up a good point that the gazebo is typically used during the day. And this venue may not necessarily be a daytime venue, or at least not solely a daytime venue. Yeah, but I have my concerns, but I also recognize that it's not our business to solve that problem.
Sandy, do you have any comments on this?
No, I guess I do have a comment about parking. And I agree with Margaret that people will park where they can find space. And most of the overflow parking from downtown, is on El Paso Avenue. So they just park along the creek for that, or in the dirt lot that belongs to
And there
the,
are dedicated spots there.
Not
Have they
anymore.
been cleaned or not?
actually
Not
the
accessible anymore?
construction folks for the trail,
Mhm.
and then Terrell from Sky Space are the ones that graded the road and took out the parking. the designated parking areas. So I was grateful for that, since our town public works couldn't get to it, so.
So maybe that's something that our public works should maybe review again, because there were spaces for people to be able to pull in over there.
There were 10.
Diagonal.
Over there on the other side of the bridge. So with that being said, board, do you have a motion on this particular variance?
Well, I would move to approve, based on recommendation from our planning commission.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye,
Aye.
and that motion passes.
Before we go on, can I ask a question here as far as code goes? Or should I wait till another time?
You can ask.
So my question is, because we're having issues with our code, is this part of the rewrite project? Are we reviewing this to not have such an onerous amount of square footage involved and not have as much dedicated parking? I mean, I don't know if there's like a specific number for the square feet that's required, or for the building capacity or anything, but is this part of the overview for the code that's being reviewed?
For the variance on the size of the lot, yes.
Good.
For the amount of space required for like additional parking and whatnot,
I
I
think it goes
can't
hand in
remember off the
hand,
top of my
shouldn't it?
head. I can't remember off the top of my head. We do have a table, a land use table. We obviously have not voted on it, so this is preliminary information.
Right.
But as we proceed forward, this is something we can take a second look at that land use table and see if there's something we can tweak.
I think that would be really good, just considering the reason that we're doing this variance is because of our code that isn't really an accurate code.
Yeah, the one.
I mean, for lack of a better way
I
to say it.
think what is in there now is like 5,000 square feet instead of 10.
Okay.
Oh, no, it's 7,000.
7,500.
7,500.
7,500.
Pardon me.
And is that realistic? I mean, it's not that often that we have a new business like this come in anyway.
The initial set that we're using, we're kind of copying, for lack of a better term, what's been done in other communities.
Okay,
There will probably be some recommendations that, say, for example, if the town were ever to annex on the other side of Highway 24, we would definitely have to revisit the land use code.
thank you.
Thanks, Todd. Thanks, Margaret. At this time, we're going to administer an oath of office for Planning Commission for Mike Frey. So, Mr. Frey, if you would please approach. Right up here, please.
Oh, okay.
Front
and center.
Front center is how we do it.
All right.
I'll try not to drop you like that. If you'll please repeat after me, raise your right hand. I, Mike Frey,
I, Mike Frey,
do affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
do affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
the Constitution of the State of Colorado,
the laws of the State of
the
Colorado,
laws of the State of Colorado,
and the ordinances of the town
and the ordinances of the town
of Green Mountain
of
Falls,
Green Mountain Falls,
and will faithfully perform
and will faithfully perform
the duties of the Office of Planning Commissioner
the duties of the Office of Planning Commissioner
for the town of Green Mountain Falls,
for the town of Green Mountain Falls,
upon which
on which
I am about to enter
I'm about to enter
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Mr. Frey, congratulations. We have not always administered an oath of office, but I think it's a good habit to get into so people do recognize that we do take it seriously, small town or not. The next item on the agenda is PPRTA CAC realignment. Mr. Gooding, would you like to approach and we'll talk about this?
Okay, so you have the materials included in the agenda packet. Just very briefly, a little bit of background. Callahan did join the PPRTA quite recently. At that point in time, there were 9 voting members on the board of trustee of the PPRTA. 3 from Colorado Springs, 3 from El Paso County, 1 each from Green Mountain Falls, Rama, and Manitou Springs. So there were 9 votes all told. When Callahan joined, that made potentially 10 votes. However, that also meant that between them, El Paso County and Colorado Springs would no longer have a supermajority on the board. Therefore, it was decided that those 3 votes that were already in place for the smaller communities would now be split 4 ways, which means on the board now, Green Mountain Falls, the other smaller communities had each 3/4 of the vote. When after that was decided by the board, it was requested to keep the CAC aligned with the voting membership of the board, that we look into how we wanted to reorganize ourselves so that the voting power of the 2 larger communities stayed essentially the same. So we discussed it at the last meeting at the beginning of February. It was, as we were instructed, we voted for option number 1, which is shown on the first page there. That did pass, and it was recommended that the bylaws or the intergovernmental agreement be revised to reflect option number 1. The 2 representatives at that time on the CAC from Manitou voted against it. In the subsequent meeting the following week with the board, the mayor of Manitou Springs, who is a member of the board, requested that it be reconsidered on the grounds, I was not at the meeting, didn't see it later, on the grounds that Manitou Springs provided substantially more funding to PPRTA than the other 3 smaller communities, and therefore they should retain 2 members on the CAC. That was agreed to. The information is being researched, and I expect to have it presented tomorrow. That was mentioned when we voted in the CAC last month, that Manitou does provide sales tax revenue for PPRTA that is, shall we say, more aligned with what it gets back than the smaller communities. You know, Green Mountain Falls, I don't think there's any doubt that we do get more out of PPRTA than we send out in sales tax, and that's true of Rama and Callahan as well. So that's essentially where we are headed tomorrow. Manitou Springs wants to keep 2 members on the CAC for the reason being that they contribute substantially more. I anticipate that we will still be asked, well, I don't know what they're going to ask, because the recommendation of the committee is that we are to develop a recommendation without any sort of set of requests to go by. Because they also are asking us to talk about if we want to reduce or change the number of at-large alternates, which kind of sort of makes sense because there is always very good attendance in the CAC. I have never seen in the 8 or so months I've been there more than 2 of the alternates need to step in and cast votes. So 4 may be overkill in that case. But anyway, all of this is going to be hashed out somehow or other tomorrow. I really don't know what to expect. I mean, if you're looking for my personal feelings in the matter, I'm happy to share them. But that is, in a nutshell, what we're being asked to do.
Well, please go ahead and tell us what your personal opinion is, and then I'll tell you what the conversations I've had are shaking out like.
Okay, fair enough. Well, first of all, I think the board has already set forth where it thinks Manitou Springs stands in relation to the other smaller communities when they split the 3 votes 4 ways. In that they did not make Manitou Springs a separate case. They had no more votes on the board than Green Mountain Falls or the other 2 smaller communities. So the board apparently feels that Manitou counts just the same as Green Mountain Falls, if you look at it that way. Now, if the board feels that the funding justifies giving Manitou Springs more representation, they are certainly free to do so, but I have not seen any indication that they're prepared to do so. And I don't expect that. So, you know, it's kind of feels like a do what I say and not what I do situation on the part of the board. As I mentioned, the CAC also did have not the specifics, but the fact that Manitou does contribute to the PPRTA more in proportion to its population and what they get back. We knew that already, and we did vote in favor of number 1 in a large majority and proposed that, as I said, by a vote of 13-2. I recommended that to the board. So the specifics are new. The generalities are not new. We knew that. We made the decision and we recommended that. So I think that's already been decided. Finally, I don't like the precedent that's being set here, that the amount of money that's being contributed should determine the degree to which someone's able to make decisions about the PPRTA. We are a member, 3/4 of a member, if you want to look at it that way right now, but we are a member. It could be a slippery slope to where they end up saying, well, you know, your contributions don't really justify having a say in what's done here. We'll tell you what you're going to get, do with it what you will, and we'll not be grateful for it, but you don't get any votes. That's obviously an extreme case, but by the same token, this could be concerned. So in general, I'm not happy about it. I've got no problem with Manitou Springs. It's a wonderful place. I enjoy spending time there. If the CAC decides that they should get 2 votes, I'm fine with saying, okay, that's what we decided, and I'll vote along with everybody to recommend that up to the board. But, you know, if somebody's asking me personally what I think, I don't like it. And I think Manitou should keep on vote just like we do.
Or another option that I don't know where they are in the negotiation, because I was under the impression that this was already voted on by them. So are they opening it up again?
They did.
They did not vote, correct?
Right,
Oh, okay.
they turned the vote back because, Mr. Sonnenberg and Mayor Graham both are pushing really hard that they have the 2 votes for the same reasons. It was the same thing presented to the PPRTA board as presented to CAC. And that's why we're discussing it here today.
So what's wrong with having, if they're in discussions, how about instead of option 1 or option 2, why don't they have a compromise option? Because I think the most reason that everyone went with option 1 is it was the one that most closely mirrored the current composition because of the total number. So why can't they add 5 at-large alternates and have 21 total that way? I mean,
Yeah, I
I'm
don't
sorry,
know,
looking
this
at,
is
looking
just,
at the numbers, it seems like that would be an alternative for a compromise.
Okay, so are we saying?
Option 2,
so
Okay,
I think,
option
instead of
two.
it being 20, make it 21 and have 5
One more
at-large
outside. Okay, I see what you're saying, but still 2 for Manitou.
alternates. But that would appease, I think, both areas, because I didn't like option 2 because 1 total vote was lost regardless of the community.
Yeah, and I remember you saying, you know, an even number is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Becky, did you have anything to add from Mr. Sonnenberg?
Thank you. The only other thing in regards to, there being, even number is that he did reference that they never or at least very seldom had a tiebreaker type of a situation where they needed an odd number.
Frankly, it's rare that a vote is even close.
But still,
Well, and because I promised Mayor Graham that I would bring this before the board, basically the same discussion. They feel that they, although they are small, their tax base is a lot larger than ours, and it always will be. And they'll always contribute more to PPRTA than any of the small communities. Even the 3 small communities combined are not really gonna approach Manitou. And at least in my experience, I can think of maybe 2 instances in the last 15 or so years where the small towns really had to go and argue with the big guys. I've always found it to be a very fair board and a board that listens to everyone. So presenting what Mr. Graham is saying is that they just want 2 votes just to represent themselves and their interests better. So last time we voted for option 1, PPRTA sent it back to request that we consider option 2. The small communities of Rama and Calhoun, I don't think Calhoun's had a vote, but I think Rama also considered option 1. But it's something for you to discuss and consider. I see their logic. I see your logic in this. It, to me, almost will make no difference to us as a community. It's really voting on what we want to see Manitou do, because we're still gonna have our 1 vote. And the at-large can be from anywhere, although typically it's small.
So that would potentially give us 2 votes.
So it could give us 2, but honestly, it's never been that kind of contentious situation in my experience. And usually they're voting on things like, can Colorado Springs fund this bridge from their own PPRTA money as opposed to the other bridge? No one's gonna argue that. They want what they want, we want what we want. I get Manitou's perceived advantage, but I don't know that it's a real advantage.
well, but that also puts Manitou in the same situation as us, because if they want to have 2 representatives, they can have at-large or at-large alternates.
Sure, and it probably will. So I'm looking at you to see if you have any questions, ideas, discussions.
I've already seen it.
Yeah, I think Margaret has a good alternative.
And it's like, it's the numbers, it's about the numbers, you know?
So are you saying, to reiterate, you would go with option 2 and add
If
another
they amended it
alternate?
to 5 at-large. Or to 6 at-large or 5 at-large alternates, so that there's a total of 21. Because I don't get why they didn't keep the total at 21 for both options.
I'm sure there's a reason that I don't know.
Well, the key that you're looking at is 1 through 7, because the alternates only vote when somebody's missing before.
Okay,
So
yeah.
1 through 7, if that adds up to an odd number, you've got an odd number.
Okay.
So right now,
So
option,
maybe
option
they-
2 is an even number as it stands. So you either take 1 away or add 1 to the at-large.
So maybe they need to change the at-large to 6 to make it 21 for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. 6 and then just 3 at-large or 4 at-large.
4 at-large, and that makes it 21 total.
There you go.
Because it seems to me like either option, it should be the same total,
So is
but
that,
just how it's distributed.
so is that your motion that you would go with 2, but you would add,
But add 1 more at-large.
yeah,
Make it 6 instead of 5, so that the total is 21.
is that your motion?
Yes, because numbers that don't work make me crazy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there further discussion on this item? So motion and a second, and if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of an alternative to what they're asking, please vote by saying aye.
Aye.
And that'll be interesting to see what PPRTA does with that. But there we are.
Okay.
Great, thank you so much. Item 8, special event permit for the Green Box Block Party on June 18th.
Hello, Jesse Stroop, 10770 North Lawrence Avenue. And we are presenting special event applications for 2 block parties this year in the Green Box. First one is for June 18th, which would mirror our traditional block parties in every way. And if you can scroll down to the slide that has the demo there, one more. We would, at 4 p.m., we would block off the terminus of Lake Street, start doing sound checks, and begin the block party there. Typically, we borrow the closure signs from Public Works. We pick those up and we take them back after the event. Sound and everything wrapped up by 10 p.m. Any questions?
Gordon?
I'll just note that I do have a certificate of insurance from Jesse as well, and we are figuring out the fees. There's some other things that we're grouping together, so we're on top of getting those fees and everything together.
So are we approving in principle then, without the fees?
Yeah, I guess motion just as long as, motion to approve, contingent on the fees being paid, but we are in process of totaling all of the fees together.
All right, Board, do you have any questions on this particular permit?
Yes, so it's just a special event permit. It's not for the use of the park.
This one is only for the use of the terminus of Lake Street, which we block off from parking so that attendees can set up lawn chairs there and watch the game.
All right, is there a motion?
I'll move that we approve.
I'll second.
There's no further discussion. All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes. Item 9 is special event permit for Green Rocks Block Party and Water Lantern Festival on July 4th.
So we start out with the repeat event, everything mirroring the June 15th event, but we would terminate the evening with patriotic music coming from Gazebo Island. I'm not sure if that would be amplified music or not yet, depends on the group, and we don't have that information yet. So I'm gonna ask for permission to do that. And then at the end of that music, we would launch water lanterns out onto the lake.
Now, you have to explain more about the water lanterns. We've had this discussion, but I want the public to know more about these.
Certainly. So, so these water lanterns have a wooden base. They will not hurt the lake. They're going to float, and they're going to have electronic tea lights in them instead of lighted candles. Green Box will have a studio open throughout Green Box for people to come in and decorate their own lantern. And we would take them out to the lake and launch them at the end of the evening.
So in other words, we aren't going to have a Viking funeral of fire. It's all safe.
Oh,
That's-
sold.
I know.
Sold.
So, Board, do you have any questions about this?
So who will be doing the launching? Will it be the people that have made the stuff, or is it just your Green Box staff?
I think it will likely be Green Box staff.
Okay. And it's just from the center that it's gonna be launched from,
Right.
so.
At some point, I will need to test the waters.
So will you want access to that blocked off so that people aren't going back and forth during that? Have you thought that far ahead?
We would likely need the gazebo blocked off because we'll have performers at the
Right.
gazebo.
Right.
I don't know, what the timeline looks like for work to be done, at the park. I don't know if you could help us out with that, but.
Absolutely. So I'll give some additional information on the timeline for a couple of projects in my report. In talking to contractors around town that have helped to drain and refill the lake before, I'm told that it really takes just a couple of days to refill it, and that we should be able to complete work reasonably around scheduled events.
All right, board, anything further?
I think my recommendation to the staff, probably for both, would be to look and see as far as fees, maybe mirror last year. At least as far as getting an idea for everything. And you do not need security because you guys, I read that in both applications too. So that could save a little bit on the overall fees because you won't be requiring security.
Right, and we have the fees for this special application. We were getting two and doing a little permit, so I just need to pay that.
And the fee's based on, it's either 500 a day or 150 per hour, 2 hour minimum. So we'll just figure that out hourly. So.
All right, board, any further questions on this? I move approval with contingent on fees, but move to approval for the special event permit.
I'll second.
No further discussion? All those in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
That motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10 is reports. Catherine?
I don't have anything.
Margaret?
Thank you.
Nothing to report.
Cindy?
Nothing.
We are a quiet group. I did have a lunch with all the regional mayors. Obviously, we did discuss the PPRTA. We also discussed those of us who are term limited and leaving office. We discussed fire mitigation at some length. And it was a very interesting discussion because Mayor Southers is part of a national group that looks at wildlife-urban interface. And the smart thing about that is he really believes that all of us should keep in touch and keep working together and not isolate ourselves from everybody else. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't pursue grants in our own fire mitigation, but we definitely had a lot of discussion about how Forest Service, town, and the utilities all need to work together, including 30th Manitou, because Manitou has a very similar problem. So I would just put that out there that needs to be always in the back of everyone's mind, including the fire committee, because we can't isolate ourselves. It's too big and we end up just hurting ourselves. So the county and Colorado Springs are also looking at more fire mitigation and keeping us in mind with more community working. We also discussed more affordable housing, which doesn't affect us as much right now, but it will when you consider the county as a whole and our neighbors in the county. So that's going to keep being pursued. And that was pretty much that. Committee reports. Jesse, you had a report. Did you want to present that?
So I'll go through just some general updates and things that PRT is working on. You can certainly stop me and ask me questions. For Catamount Trail, Historic Greenland Falls Foundation is working with an attorney to write a MOU. And we've asked for that to be a boilerplate type contract so that PRT can use it going forward should they need to. And that attorney just has not provided that yet, but it's in the works. As far as wayfinding signage goes, of course, we all know that we have the towers up. We did submit a report to Public Works about signs that we recommended be removed. And this was all presented last May as part of the wayfinding signage project. And then we have our contractor currently working on the historical signs in town. We need the painted green ones. Some of those are being completely redone, some of those are being restored. And we should see that project wrapped up within the next 30 days. We did receive a report of an erosion issue at the trailhead at Mount Dewey. The Friends of the Past Trails had a couple of different recommendations of how to repair that. PRT passed that information on to the Historically Mount Falls Foundation, and they will proceed with any kind of permitting expenses involved with that. We were happy to have the town manager ask PRT to help support with the gazebo lake renovation. Don Walker was appointed the lead on that effort and has been working on pulling together some documents, and PRT is having a special meeting tomorrow to help with that. Also asked to help with the restroom facility that will go in at Pool Park, and their approved trash cans that are slated to come out later this year. PRT will help oversee the installation of the fitness court once it is warm enough. We anticipate that happening either April or May. And we have our election of officers in January. I'll stay at the chair, Jay Key the co-chair, Nancy Dixon secretary. And we do have one member spot open. We have an applicant that we will discuss at tomorrow's PRT meeting. And at our last meeting, we had someone offer to us, not physically, but in just some historical drawings of Gazebo Lake, some architectural drawings and things of that nature. And we, so we can take an action, we recommended that any of those artifacts be given to Town Hall to be scanned and documented. Finally, we came up with a list of goals for 2022. Those are all listed here. Some of them are spillovers or continuations from last year. And we will be doing a lot of our work with the park renovations. And I'll let you read through those and just ask me if you have any questions.
Well, you certainly have a robust group doing a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. Makes a big difference. There are a lot of things in the town. I really appreciate it.
I don't see anything about naming the parks.
I thought there was an there somewhere.
I thought I saw it at another time.
Engage the community to confirm their Magic Park names.
Okay.
Some goals list.
Nancy Dixon got very creative.
Nancy Dixon, look at you.
But that is, we want to engage the community to make sure that everyone's in agreement. And we currently have names for the parks, we just want to either reaffirm them or.
Well, it would be good to make them official, because I think the Gazebo Lake Park is the only one that's, like, I don't know, official in town records.
And more.
Yeah.
It'd be nice to get that
You know, they-
firmed up.
Because, you know, things like the pool, I don't know if the pool is gonna be there forever. It'd be nice if it was named, you know, something, I don't know, that identifies it,
Formerly known as the Blue
right. And,
When I was growing up, that was the park. And nobody really played down by the lake
No.
because there wasn't a decent swing set down there at all. Everything was up at the park here. And it was either the park or the lake. So.
Yeah, no, I know that informal names are.
Right, Sean?
End up on maps, but,
Yeah, that'd be fun. So maybe you can have some sort of community thing.
We will definitely think of a way to do that.
I know you will.
I don't know why we couldn't wrap it into recognition of volunteers and, you know, when we're having a community gathering, to make that part of it.
Part of that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Board, anything further? Jesse, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else here for a committee report? Todd, have anything?
Not really a lot, just I found out why I couldn't remember if parking was, actually part of one of our tables, because it hadn't been submitted to us yet. So.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
A quick update on Fire Mitigation Committee.
Oh, please.
There was a meeting last night. The last couple regular meetings, they have not been able to get a quorum. And there's a volunteer application that's been sitting out there, not been able to be acted on by the committee because of no quorum. The volunteer is Kelly Hunter. I don't know if any of you know her, but she lives at the top of Foster and Mountain Avenue there. Anyway, she wants to be on the committee, but no one's been, they haven't been able to act on it. So we talked about perhaps the board being able to approve her volunteer application tonight and getting another member on that committee if you are so inclined.
Did we have that?
Yeah, did that get submitted?
No, because I made up the agenda before, I didn't, before realizing that there was no quorum and et cetera, so I didn't have it, I didn't amend it at all. I could bring it up here if you wish to see it, on the screen, but Kelly has some good experience with being involved in grants and things and other volunteer organizations that she's been a part of, and she's obviously up at that interface right below Thomas Trail, so she's familiar with the land up there, and she's been a long-time resident of the community, so I think she'd be a very positive addition to that group.
Well, if you would bring it up so we can have a look.
Sure. There it is.
All right.
And you said that they're having a meeting tomorrow?
No, they had one last night. PRT is having a meeting tomorrow. But they had one last night, and it's just been just challenging to get a quorum. They're down to 3 members, and it's just been a struggle in that way.
So I'd be more comfortable having this on our next agenda
Okay.
to be able to approve it at that point. And
Okay.
maybe for the contingency, she could volunteer her time if she wants to, just be at the meetings to kind of get up to speed. But as far as actual approval, I'd be more comfortable going through the right steps.
Agreed.
Okay. Sounds good.
And that way, regardless of if they've got a quorum or not, we can do it in our next meeting.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right, we're gonna move to staff reports. Thank you, Nate, for that report,
You're welcome.
committee report.
Staff report. No staff
Yeah.
report from me.
Well, and before Becky starts, I want to bring something up. Congratulations to Becky Frank, who was the former Deputy Assistant OEM for Teller County, on receiving the Emergency Management of the Manager of the Year for the South Central All Hazards Region of 2021. I want everyone to recognize what an achievement that is, as well as what a lucky thing that is for us to have in our town, because here is an expert from emergency management who can help with all of our many situations that we have here. So congratulations.
Thank you. I wouldn't proclaim to be an expert by any means, but I do have a good list of phone numbers of people to call.
You know who to call, that's the most important
Sometimes
thing.
that's what you need.
Thank you for that. It was really an honor and a privilege to get to work in that capacity. And, you know, hopefully it prepared me for this year. With that, no written report tonight, just a couple of updates on things that are ongoing. The comprehensive roads plan is published on the BidNet and on our website, along with our CDBG, the Gazebo Lake Improvements Project. Would like to thank the Parks and Recreation Committee for their assistance in that and had a great conversation with dog walkers. So thanks to Jesse for helping make that connection. In addition to that, the search for your new marshal is underway. That job posting is also live, has been posted to Indeed as well as the Colorado Municipal League website, along with our town website.
And do we have a deadline for that? Or is it until filled?
It's until filled, but we do have a first review of applications coming up. And really the plan with that is to do a preliminary interview committee. We do have a date scheduled of March 21st to do preliminary interviews. And a really great group of incoming, outgoing board members, as well as some representation from the citizens and some law enforcement as well. So appreciative of everybody's help there. Once that occurs, once that first round of interviews is complete, we would like to bring those finalists to a secondary and final interview with the board.
Great. Sounds good. All right. Do we have any further staff reports?
I do have a couple of other things that I've been working on, just a couple of updates of the Board of Trustees and committee orientations that I'll get some correspondence out here shortly. And then also wanted to definitely thank our Public Works crew for their help to complete and submit our third quarter PPRTA report for, of course, over a period of time that preceded me. So I appreciate them stepping up and helping get that completed. And that's all I have. We do have, I think, a report from the marshal that was submitted as well.
I didn't get it from him in time to get it on the agenda. It was being yesterday, the last day of February, so I'll include that on the next agenda.
Perfect. Thank you. Item 11 is correspondence. Item 12, persons present and that are not on the agenda. If you have something you would like to bring up, please approach and state your name for the record. Seeing none, I would just
It's like when your kids are too quiet.
right? You know they're up to something, as they always are. I'd just like to thank all volunteers, all of our staff, a lot of hard work. I know that we've had some extreme weather, and here you are still every day. I appreciate it. And with that, this meeting is adjourned 7:31. Happy Mardi Gras, Shrove Tuesday, caucus night, and State of the Union. It's a good night.
Thank you.
You're welcome.